So I wanted to start talking about how familiar you were with Milwaukee when you got the invitation to come here and do this project. Did you know anything about the city? Did you have any expectation? What did you find when you got here?
Before I came here?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I knew that Milwaukee exists as much as Chicago. Mm-hmm. The difference was that I was in Chicago before, just by case, as a tourist, but not here in Milwaukee. I knew, however, Toronto, who is also on the lake,
right.
and I has been working there for 3 or 4 years. So I was familiar a little bit with this part of the world. You see, I mean, as a European, about the vegetation, the light, the presence of the lake, the importance of the lake, because both cities have a certain similarity, isn't it? So in relation to the lake, so it's the case of Chicago. And I knew also that the museum has had a very good collection of German expressionism, which it is very rare here in the United States, out of the many immigrants who came here, or the interest of the presence of an important German origin community. I knew that the museum was very respectable, particularly because that it was also starting to build up a collection at the time around Georgia O'Keeffe and some important contemporary artists.
And architecturally, did you know? Had you seen the Saarinen building? And that
yes,
sort of thing?
Yes, and then I knew the area and a little bit the spirit of the area through my time of studies and when studying the work of Frank Lloyd Wright particularly, and so Sullivan. You see, I knew that this area was a ferment of interesting architecture. I knew also that Mies van der Rohe, who was born in I think, he was born in Germany, isn't it? And in Aachen, exactly. Mm-hmm. And came here and established in the post-war time in Chicago, and has done an important contribution. But mostly it was the figure of Frank Lloyd Wright, you see, who has here in the city has a home, mm-hmm. He designed, and also he has also the church, very important buildings, both. I visit them carefully. Then also Racine, the Johnson laboratories, yes. And that is a major piece in the Johnson laboratories. That's a major piece in the history of the architecture of the 20th century, plus the Taliesin East, you see, who was also not far away from here, between mm-hmm. Milwaukee and Chicago. So the prairie houses, I knew also a little bit, and the whole thing has had for me a little bit of legendary character, you understand, of places where completely unsuspected, interesting architecture in mm-hmm. the 20th century and even the 19th century to the 20th century. Interesting, very interesting and substantial contemporary architecture has been done. So I came here with a lot of expectation and of course with a lot of fear, knowing the place and knowing the significance of this what I could do.
And did you find that the museum, that Chris Goldsmith and Russell Bowman and the trustees were all accepting of what you were doing? I mean, they were eager to have a work. I mean, I don't know if they could have imagined it would be as beautiful as this, but were they receptive?
In this matter, there are several aspects in a building who needs to be considered, and that since ancient times has been very, very clearly different. First of all, there is something who is the people who gives you the commission, you understand? Mm-hmm. So-called trustees, or the client. Second is the project itself. And the third part is the construction. Now, I arrived to the conviction that there is not a good project in the world without a good client. So if a project is good, means clearly the client wanted to do a good project.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That is very important, and this was the case. So the trustees, as the client, the trustees of the museum, they chose me. Was their free decision. They also has had in mind to have a significant building. Was also their decision. They also embrace and conduct the whole fundraising campaign and found this museum by working very hard and amplifying always their goal as the fundraising campaign was progressing, because the enthusiasm in the community was growing and because more people associate their idea of make from the museum extension something significant. Now, the trustees are also the extension of the city in a way. If you permit me, it may maybe be a little bit long, but it is important. Your question seems to me to be capital. You see, the trustees embrace also the sense of the community. This community, this city, has chosen a cultural facility as emblem, as sign. Mm-hmm. They could choose another thing. They could do, let's say, a telecommunication tower. Many cities have done that in Europe. You have many cities in Germany, they have an enormous tower with telecommunications, so the progress, the future, and things like that. You understand? Just for telecommunications. So we are looking, they could choose another subject. You understand? They could choose maybe the parliament or something like that, political statement. No, Milwaukee chose a cultural statement as emblem to the city. This was very clear for me. From the beginning, the trustees tell me that we want to set a sign with the museum. So, decision of the client, you understand? But also per extension of the community. And this is very important, you understand? Mm-hmm. Because as I say, and I repeat it, there is not a good project in the world, and there is not a good building without an important and clear and good commitment of the people and of the community or whatever. Now, the second part is the project itself. Well, this is more related to myself, if you want, but also the project grows always in dialogue with the client. It is not that I just present here a cake and then take it or leave it. No, it was a dialogue. I kept also these enthusiasms of them. I understood they wanted to do something exceptional. They encouraged me also to do something special. And then I articulate my vocabulary, to deliver that. And I say, well, let's say we will choose a language. And the language is very clear. It's the engineering language. All those arcs, all those ribs, all those. You understand? It's an engineering language. You can see it. You see the pins. You see the articulation. You see how the arcs are arriving, and then you see how they are put. If you go to the parking lot, you have exactly the same vocabulary. So it's clearly an engineering, because I thought myself being architect, but being also engineer, and having a lot of belief in technique. That technique is a vehicle of innovation and renewal. You understand? So I thought, let's work here exposing also, in a way, in single places, very strongly our technical capacity. Eventually, they are also always a subtle way to understand architecture. There is a way, to approach the museum. Is a way how the museum becomes a sign, and how you walk in the museum. These are all architectural stuff, you understand? So, and then I thought, okay, let's do a bridge, like the memorial has a bridge. Let's also separate the museum one block, the pavilion, put the pavilion here and not close it to the museum. Get one block, so we are free of the dependence of any conflict between the actual extraordinary Saarinen building and David Keller extension and this part here. Let's also do a bridge as they have done in the, I think this is called Michigan Avenue, the other is Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, yes.
Yes, and let's do a bridge, but of course, with a technical vocabulary. And use the bridge, link it to the museum, and make the roof also close to it, parallel to the mast of the bridge, although they are independent. And then also make the wings as a poetical element, functional, because it's a brise soleil, it's shading in the sun and so, but also as a poetical element, embracing with the openness, the lake, the landscape, the horizon, and the birds who are flying around. And so you see, this was the way how this thing has been administered. Do you understand? Also, entering in the museum, you enter, you have, if you arrive from the garage, you have a whole way to go up. You discover the calder, and then you go again up, and then you arrive into the lobby. But if you come also from the street, it compresses you a little bit in the entrance, and then opens more and more towards the hall with the opening to the lake. And then when you arrive to the end of the hall, you turn back, and then you see another type of roof, because the roof is bivalent, isn't it? Things like that. These are architectural resources who are articulated through the vocabulary of engineering. Yeah. And this is the essence of the project. You see, I could of course explain you much more things and much more detail, but this is the link between the two parts of the old and the Saarinen War Memorial and David Keller extension, and our pavilion here is just horizontal, as the horizon is also horizontal. But then we extend it with this canopy and with the canopy towards the lake, a bit, in the spirit of the prairie houses of Frank Lloyd Wright that you maybe know, yes. Park or so, was these roofs were getting in all directions. So, there is also in all of that a lot of, let's say, so-called architectural thought, but the material part, you see, is engineering-wise, yes. Isn't it? Yeah. Now, you see, about the construction, that is very important. I was very lucky, because I got, first of all, an extraordinary architect as co-architect or architect of record, as is David Keller. And David Keller put all his heart and his wisdom and his experience, you understand, in order to deliver the building in the most perfect way. And you can see it in the corners, in the formworks and all of that. These are demanded by architects who have been watching here, things that you see that in the joints of the marble, who is very modest, seems to be extraordinary, this marble, but by itself it's a modest marble, it's not luxurious, pure white marble and things like that, but it's so well put that is a magic thing, you see, and then it dignifies the place, isn't it? And the same thing happens, you see, with all the details you can see around, and I think and the carpenters, who have been working here, and all the workers who put their heart, then the construction of the roof, then the construction of the bridge, then the construction of the brise soleil, who we needed to find a way, to make it possible in the last minute, isn't it? And we make it possible, isn't it? Bringing it here by the Antonov, from abroad, and things like that. So it was also, this is not only the real part of the building, the real part of the materialization of the building, but also eventually the heroic part. You understand what I mean? Heroes, they are, for me, those guys are all heroes. You understand? Yeah. And they put really their heart, as I has put it, they put the heart and the hands, to make it possible. So, and here was this extraordinary constellation that client, project, and executors, you see, try to give the very best. Yeah. They was coordinated, they was articulated with each other, and then we presented to the community, in all humbleness, and of course, imagine, 20 years later, I am so proud to be here and to see that people recognize through me the effort we all have done. It's not a reconnaissance But you know, the architect is a little bit, you know, this is the destiny of an architect.
Right.
When the thing goes well, you are in the top and you shine. When the thing goes bad, everybody.
All right, I think my
So
time.
it's part of the story of the profession. So you need to take that with a lot of philosophy and particularly with a lot of humbleness.
Well, my time is up, but I'm going to ask you one quick question because this was the question I have to ask you. For years, Milwaukee has had a battle. There's some people who say that the Mark DeSuvero sculpture, the Calling, blocks the museum and should be moved. And then there's other people who say it beautifully aligns with the building and should stay. What do you think?
Yes, you see, first of all, you see, I think I tell you before, it's very important to preserve all the area around the museum for future extensions or for art. You see, today, if you look cities like Chicago, they are not only famous because they introduced the first in the world architectural tools, but also they have been capturing the very best sculptors of the time and letting them do magnificent work. So you walk in Chicago and then suddenly you stay there in front of an extraordinary Picasso. And then if you look at the corner a little bit there is a Miro. I say that because both are from Spain. But then you go to the Michigan Park and you see extraordinary Anis Kapoor and Jaume Plensa and Abramovich, you see, and then you go there and then Max Chagall. Irrepeatable. You will not get them anymore because many of them are passed away.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary legacy. It is the 20th century. You understand what I mean? Looking at it from the 21st century, it's extraordinary because you think, you know, it will go ahead. When you go to Florence, you see Il Davide, the Michelangelo in front of La Signoria, and then you see also Bologna, you see, and then you see also Cellini, you know, they passed away many years ago. They are there. You know? I mean, it is very important that we understand that this is, in my opinion, a good completion, you know, of all of that. You understand that new sculptures, you know, are introduced. Now, about the sculpture of the Suvero, personally, I like it since the first day. It's not new. And I tell you why. When you are approaching the museum from Michigan Avenue, then you have a first reference, is the Suvero sculpture. And then behind it, the Brisolet. Now, is the Brisolet close? Brisolet and it appears like a line behind. You understand? But you have a first reference, and then it opens. Then the link between the sculpture and the rest gives you an scale. And that is very important because it lets appear the Brisolet extraordinarily large and big, which it is not the case. You see, in the reality, the scale is, I would like to say, not domestic. It's certainly monumental, but very controlled. You understand? We are not in front of the capital. You understand what I mean? We are not in front of La Tour Eiffel. You follow me? No. You see, La Tour Eiffel is something, you know, you need the whole Champ de Mars. And then even from la Place de Fontenoy, behind the École Militaire, it seems to be gigantic wherever you look. You understand? But here is another, you understand, the scale is much more measured, you understand? And so the sculpture of the Suvero is like when you have, let's say, a photograph, and there is nobody there. Suddenly you put a person, and the scale of the photograph changes. Do you understand what I mean? And I has had a similar problem as it happens here in Manhattan. When I build the Path Station, I always say the Path Station is a link between the gigantic scale of the towers and the pedestrians. It has, of course, 40 meters, 120 or more feet. You know, I think the tip is maybe 160 feet or something like that high. But you know, the towers are 600 feet and more. You understand what I mean? So it's this kind of link, you understand, a scale link. And like I say, as an architect, I think it's very well put where it is.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.